Hi, we're going to spend some time looking at how to create a layout in InDesign, something fairly basic, but still that covers a lot of techniques that we're going to be using frequently. The end result is going to resemble what we're seeing here on the screen right now, and in this video I'll show you all the steps I took to get here, and a couple that I did off screen as well, but are relevant to this project. So first things first, what I want to do is check my specifications. And by that I mean I want to make sure that I'm working on the right files and using the right dimensions and everything is in order from a technical perspective. So basically I'm working on an 8 by 10 inch full bleed portrait or landscape design. This is my choice, this part. Deliverables include a high resolution press ready PDF, so I know in the end what I have to provide the client with, and the client's name is the fitness group. Fine. I have a series of assets that I've downloaded, some stock photography, the client's logo, and possibly some text if needed. And of course, we have the primary text, which is located here, and this is the stuff that needs to go into the ad that we're putting together. This will fulfill the client objectives for this particular advertisement. So without delay, let's start putting things together. First things we want to do is open a new file. Oops, document. Choose our units. We're going to be working in inches. Size 8 by 10. Portrait. One page, starting at number 1. Columns. I'm going to split this into 3 columns just to make it easier to figure out my layout. We're not actually going to use it for content or anything, but it's going to be used more as guides to split up my page. Margins, I want to use a ½ inch margin so I don't have my stuff too close to the edge of the page. And the bleed, we only need a 0.125 inch bleed for this document. Slug is whatever, it doesn't really matter at this point. And you could click here, the little button in the corner, to click preview, so you could take a quick look at your document and make sure everything's okay. So the red line is our bleed. The white area is our final print size. That's our actual work area. This purple and pink line here, these are the margins, and you can see 3 columns in the document itself. So this is looking pretty good. Now what I want to do here is turn off this primary text frame, because what that does is it adds like a big box to start entering text right away. We don't really need that, so I'm going to turn that off, and I'm going to click create. And there we are. We have a nice blank canvas to start working with. Again, what I'll probably do at this point is look at what are the absolute mandatory things that I need to have on this document that are non-negotiable. I basically need to say that there's a new fall swim fitness program available. And what I'll do to avoid jumping back and forth is I'll just click my text type tool over here and just drag out a little text box and just paste this information in. Now this serves 2 purposes. It saves me the hassle of jumping back to the slide continuously, and it also gives me a nice overview of all the text that I have to play with, because the text itself will be a design element and it should be treated as such. So what else do we have to say? They are expecting applications, space is limited. So let's grab accepting applications. That could be 1. Space is limited. And call these numbers and go to this website for more info and just sign up. So this is another piece of information we need. We have a list of activities that we need to showcase. And there's a requirement here, a brief text that provides a summary of the program, maximum 100 words. This we can sort it out when we need to. And again, this is most layouts will have at least some text there, so we'll get things started. So now that I have a better idea of the text that I'm working with, I can start looking at it and looking at how can I work with this text to make it more appealing from a design perspective, and also how can I just make sure that message gets across. So I'm free to move this text around and also rewrite it so that it looks better. So um, if we look at the work that takes place on that side of things, we end up with this business over here. So AquaFitness Fall 2018 program. Okay, that captures this part. So we changed swim to AquaFitness. Sounds cooler. Accepting applications. Where's that information end up here? Call now to reserve your spot. This is a call to action. It's telling somebody do something. When? Now. What are you doing? Reserve. This has to be very clear and it has to be very focused. Space is limited. And we can see it over here as well. Space is limited. That message made it through. And what you don't want to do is hide the important information. For example, the phone number and the website. So you want to make sure this text is emphasized and treated properly so that it's visible and it stands out and you can see it even from a distance. So first things first, what I would probably do at this point is pause, pull out a sketch pad, a piece of paper, a pencil, whatever, and start sketching out some ideas. Just some layouts, just some ways I could organize this. I want to try a few things out with pencil and paper because it's so much faster than working with computers, especially when it comes down to ideas. And you don't have to sit there clicking on menus and looking for things, and it's just stream of consciousness. You go in there, you just get it done, and eventually you'll find something that stands out. Now it also helps to take a look at your assets at this point so that you can see what are you working with. Okay, what are the images that you have available to you? Um, we have some nice symmetry here. We have some nice symmetry there. Nice symmetry here. This is helpful. It helps us understand the space above, below, around. There's also more dynamic ones with a lot of diagonal lines, action shots. And again, some other interesting shapes taking place over here. These will all influence your creative decisions, and it all has to come together so that it makes sense. For example, start looking for things. For example, I have 3 columns, and guess what? There are 3 people over here that I can maybe split up equally and try a few things out with. So let's try experimenting a little bit. I click here to draw out a frame, and this I'm going to be using for the primary image. I want to have a nice bold image that will draw people in. So I pull out my rectangular frame here, and it's got the X telling me that this is primarily used for images, and I'm going to place an image in that container right now. From my assets, let's try this one here. Open, and there it is. Now it pasted the large high resolution file, which is great, but the fitting isn't exactly how I like it. So what I'll do is make sure that I resize to fit the content proportionally by clicking that link. Now I can also grab this image and scale it manually by clicking the center over here and zooming in. Now normally you would see a round circle appear over here, but because of my recording application, that circle is not visible. But you would see it in InDesign for sure. It still works the way it would normally would. So if I click this button here, it scales down the image, and it keeps it in proportion, which is what I want. I don't want any distortion. And now I can click and drag to resize the physical contents of that container. Now the container is still the bounding box, but I can interact with the image inside. So let's say I want to take advantage of the three columns and split this up. Now again, it doesn't matter if I extend the image past the document boundaries. The important part is that it reaches the edge of the red line here, the bleed area, so that when it gets printed, this area will get chopped off and you have color right to the end. So this is an interesting approach. You can try doing this and say, oh yeah, that's got an interesting visual happening. You can try resizing that image a little bit to show more of it, or maybe hide those lines and just keep it simple. But you know, I feel like maybe not. Now it's a little grainy, as you can see over here, very pixelated, so you might want to turn on your high quality display so you can see it in better context. Whatever. So let's focus on something else. Let's focus on the titles. Okay, I used one font for this. I'm looking for a nice chunky font, but what just happened here? I dragged in my text. I could see the frame, but I don't see the text. So what happened in this case is that we're working in layers, even though if we look here, there's only one layer in this particular document. All the objects on this layer, if you click this little down arrow here, are listed in order from bottom to the top. So right now this selected text is all the way at the bottom. I can grab it and move it to the top of this stack. So now it's higher than the image, which is below. And you can use these buttons here to select elements on your document and help you stack them above or below each other so that when they overlap, you can control which one is below and which one is on top. Now the first thing I want to do here is possibly put my text frame in an area that makes sense. I want to make my life easy, so what I'll do is I'll just stretch it edge to edge and select my type tool and choose center so that my text becomes centered in this container. Another way of doing that is by having the paragraph panel open and changing your settings here. This panel pretty much duplicates what's up here, so whichever one you're more comfortable with. I like having these panels open because there's a lot of work that can be done there, or you could do it all up here. So the first thing I want to do is go to character and choose my font, and I want to choose Railway Black for this one. And the size, I want to bump it up to maybe 48. Ooh. Sorry, that was the leading, which we don't want to do. Let's undo that, go back to normal size, and change the font size to 48. There we go. Nice, bold, chunky text. But is this the final text we want to use? No, we're going to change this big one to AquaFitness. So double click, select all, AquaFitness. So it's nice and centered in here, but I wanted to really get as big as possible and bring it right to these margins, right to the edge here. So I'm just going to eyeball it and just press the button until it grows. Whoa, what happened there? Well, once you go past a certain size of the container, the text doesn't fit. Now, one way to avoid this is to right click this text frame and click on text frame options, and you'll notice that there's an auto size tab over here, and it allows you to change the height so that it always fits the height of your content. We don't want to mess around with the width and have it automatically adjusted for us because we want it centered on the page, edge to edge. There we go. And we click on OK here. And now no matter how many carriage returns in here, my text will always fit in that container because it's designed that way now. So that saves a lot of time of constantly resizing your container. So I got this guy here. There's probably a bit of fine tuning I can do. I can bring it from there just to like be a bit more precise. So I bring it right to the edge of the margin. If it doesn't fit, there we go. Right in there. Next, I want to grab the fall 2018. I'm just going to grab it off the other one, but it's the same process. Actually, you know what? Let's build that one too because there's some cool stuff there. So T, drag another text box, and we want it to say fall 2018. What does it say? Fall 2018 program. Perfect. Okay, so this one is also a railway, but I'm going to go with an extra light version because I want to have some contrast. Remember, part of having some interesting looking visuals to have a bit of contrast, and especially with typography, you can have stuff looking pretty boring if it's all the same. And again here I'm going to just crank up the size, and we're probably going to run out of space soon. Now the thing is, I want these to be equal width, but if I keep enlarging this until it gets that wide, it's going to look ridiculous. So another thing I have in my arsenal is maybe the letter spacing in between. So let me just crank it up a bit more. And now I can start playing with the spacing in between. Let's see if we go to 100, and you can see it spaces out some of the text in between, the letters I mean. Ooh, too much. And for now we're just going to eyeball it. What we're trying to accomplish here is the basics. We don't want to sit there fiddling with details at this point. We just want the basic structure and make sure it all looks good. We're going to do a little sweep and clean it all up in the end. So there you go. We have a nice bold start here, and we have some space for the logo. Let's put a little container here for the logo. Now if I hold down the shift key, my rectangle tool is a square. It stays square shaped. Let's place the logo. Nope, wrong logo. There we go. Now of course it doesn't fit, the box is small, so I'll click the button here to auto fit the content. This might be a little different from the one that was included in the download files, but you're allowed to tweak the logo a little bit to get it to look the way you need it to for the purposes of this exercise. So what I need is a solid backdrop here. I'll draw out a square. I'll give it a bit of color. Now I'll be honest with you, save you all some trouble. This didn't end up working the way I liked. It looked a little weak. I didn't want to pursue it, so basically I zapped this and I changed the image here to this one. Just work ahead a little bit, and I placed it a bit differently. And what I also did was change the shape of the logo a little bit. It was a bit of cheating there, but I use the horizontal version instead of the vertical. So I think it was this one. Fit perfect. Okay, now I'll switch back to the final so we can see where we're headed. And we're kind of getting there. You know, the spacing isn't perfect, but we're kind of in the right neighborhood. This is stuff we'll fine tune later. Don't spend too much time worrying about things like this right now. Next thing we want to do is our list of stuff. How do we want to do it? Now we have infinite options. You know, you could just list them all here along the side. You can scatter them individually around the page. My creative choice was to have them listed like this, and I decided to put a blue dark backdrop for two reasons. One, it provides a nice anchor to the image, a nice base for it to sit on, so it doesn't look like it's just floating in space. So this and plus the bold solid color gives it a bit of weight and contrast with the white text on top. So again, I'm using the same typeface, same font, Railway. But I'm just using a different family. This is Railway Semi Bold, and I just have some separators in between. And I'm just going to copy this and paste it here for the sake of simplicity. But the way it would work is I would click a rectangle, bring it out, pick a color. This stuff is pretty basic by now, and if I don't find the color I like, I would probably create a new one maybe. Right, so you can create your formula. Once you're done, you can click to add your RGB swatch. That way when you go back here, you'll see it listed in your swatch list. Another place you can find your swatches is by clicking the color panel over here or your swatches over here. So whatever you see in this panel is duplicated in this list over here. Following that, what I would do is drag out another text box here, paste in my list, and reformat this text. Now these bullets that I'm putting in between, in Windows you can pull them out, or you can insert a special character by going to the menu and choosing this. So for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to assume you guys know how to format this. Get rid of line breaks. It's just like working with text. There's nothing really challenging here. Choose your text color. Oops, that's the box color. We don't want that. We want text color to be white. There it is. Again, we choose Railway. You start typing, it'll filter out your fonts here. This is probably bold. Change your font size a little bit, and maybe you want to turn off hyphenation in your paragraph. And what I ended up doing is changing the size of this box because I want all my text to line up really nicely. I don't want it going too much to the edge of the paper. That's why we have our margins. And you'll basically tweak the font size here to get everything in there. You can choose to center it. So I'm not super happy with how everything is arranged over here. So what I ended up doing in the other one was changing the order so that it fits a bit better in the space that I have. right? So you can play around with those things and make sure that it looks nice and you don't have like synchronized swimming over two lines and lessons. You don't need the lessons. We get it. It's there, you know. So I'm just going to zap this business here and bring it from the other one. What else? So this I can probably zap now. I got all the information I need. I have all this space to fill up now, right? I got the major message. This text, we can probably add some color. We'll grab the blue from here. And let's make sure we don't have an outline on that. No outline. What else? No stroke on that blue container. None. There you go. So let's get some random text in there. You can click on the text box again. Maybe a short paragraph. Click on type. And you can fill with placeholder text with InDesign here. There we go. Now if you're not sure, is this too much? Is it not enough? InDesign has a cool tool over here. If you select this text and you go to the info panel, it'll tell you how many words you have in that container, right? So you could just click and drag, and as you can see over here, it'll tell you how many words you have. So it's a good way of figuring out what's going on. Again, character, we're going to go with railway. It's just going to be regular text, so we're going to go with regular, and maybe the font size, bump it down a bit to 11. So for this box over here, we're going to go to video number 2 just to take a little quick break. And when we get back in video number 2, we'll tackle this box over here and some of the styling involved.